Hello, everyone. Welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Ajay Rao, who is the founder and CEO of Emiza Supply Chain Services, which is providing end-to-end warehousing and fulfillment services to small and medium businesses and e-commerce companies. Hi, Mr. Ajay. Welcome to ELI.
Hi, pleasure to meet you, Priya, and thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before we start talking about the venture, can you briefly introduce yourself to our audience? Tell us a bit about your background.
Sure,
Where were you born and brought up? Where did you study and work? How did
sure,
you arrive at entrepreneurship?
sure. So I'm basically I'm Ajay Rao, I'm the founder and CEO of Emiza. I've been pretty much in the supply chain industry since 2004, so about 21 years in this space. So prior to that, I was living and studying in the US, spent almost 7, 8 years there, did my undergrad there, and then was working in management consulting for about 5 years. Moved back to India in 2000 and end of 2003 due to certain sort of family sort of health issues. So that was the reason I sort of came back. And that was probably the best decision that I've taken, right? Coming back to India because I think India offers tremendous opportunity, especially for young entrepreneurs.
Well,
So my journey in supply chain started with a company called Writer, which was into they're a very large business services firm into multiple different businesses. So I sort of came in to kickstart or start up their cash logistics business. So my first venture with them was into ATM replenishment. So we were filling money into ATMs, moving bullion, moving cash. So it was a fairly scary business, moving all of that money. But that sort of business gave me a lot of learning about ground operations, coming from the US, from a very white collared business consulting into a very operationally intensive, labor intensive, blue collar business was a major cultural change. But I think that sort of really sort of lighted my passion for logistics, seeing the amount of problems that are being faced today in that space and how a simple organized professional player can solve a lot of problems. So that was my first entry here. Spent 5 years building that business from a startup to number two in the industry, turned it profitable.
okay.
Then within the same group, I moved to their relocation business, which was their largest business vertical, running India, and then I ran 6 countries. So I was the CEO for 6 countries for them. So
Mm,
spent a good 10, 11 years in that business. And then I moved to Allcargo, which is one of India's largest logistics companies.
right.
Spent a good 4 years with them in two roles. One was they had just recently started or launched their warehousing and 3PL business. So I joined in as the president for that business, built that business from a startup from them, and did a major acquisition also for them in that business. And I was also the global chief commercial officer for their LCL, which is less than a container load business.
Mm-hmm.
So spent a lot of time in Europe and shuffling between Europe and India, running these two businesses. So that was also an excellent experience. That gave me insight into the whole 3PL contract logistics and warehousing space. Before that, I didn't have exposure there, so that sort of opened up my eyes to the immense opportunity in warehousing and contract logistics, and of course gave me good international exposure in running multi-country operations for a LCL operator. So that was my stint over there, and then at that point I was already sort of heading the business for two businesses. Was reporting to the board. Didn't see too much more growth from that point of view, or more growth not from a position point of view, but more from a challenge point of view, right? I was turning 40 at that point, and I was looking for a little more meaning in my life, right? I think that's what you call that a midlife crisis, I guess. So I felt that if I don't sort of try something different and don't embrace entrepreneurship at that point, I might never, right? I didn't want to have that regret. I had a mentor with me by the name of Dilip Nath, who is also an early investor in my company. So he sort of inspired me to sort of start, because he started his own entrepreneurial journey at 40. So I took the leap, and the reason I took the leap at that point was I thought that there was, clearly on the whole, having spent time in all cargo and working in the warehousing business for automotive engineering, I saw that most of the 3PL in India was focused on large and enterprise customers in the B2B segment. and that there was a very large opportunity, especially with e-commerce coming to play in the country at that point. There was a lot of B2C, D2C kind of requirements coming up, which no 3PL had any exposure or understanding of. So I said that this was clearly an opportunity and a white space. And I said, let's embrace this. And that's kind of when I sort of left and started Emiza.
Got it.
Yeah.
Can you describe the early days of entrepreneurship? Like typically what happens, every entrepreneur, when he or she starts a venture, they tend to shortlist the number of problems and they find a lucrative problem to solve, where
Correct.
there is a lot of value to be made and a lot of money to be
Correct.
made. So how did you go about it? How did you scout the problems and where did you find a big opportunity?
So, like I mentioned, see, I was in the whole warehousing space for with all cargo which was primarily focusing on chemical engineering and automotive. And there were all the big boys over there, TVS, Mahindra, all of these people playing in that space. And it was a very B2B bulk kind of centric business. And e-commerce was just sort of, coming up in the country in the early 2016, 2017, right? I mean, the word D2C probably wasn't even coined back then. And I had a few interactions with a couple of brands because when I was starting to think about this, I because we started with All Cargo, we were doing some work for Snapdeal and a couple of other of these marketplaces, and I saw that there was definitely that the seller base was growing, and that there was everybody was wanting to sort of sell online, right? And this was sort of democratizing commerce in that sense because today most of the people in the traditional B2B world could only be successful if they had a distribution network. But with e-commerce coming in, anybody who had a product could have access to a very large audience without that distribution network in play, right? So that was the opportunity I saw, that look, there is this e-commerce is opening this up not just to the large brands, but also they're going to open it up to a whole series of mid and small brands, and they are going to need to be able to sell on these platforms, right? And that gave me the aha moment, saying that look, there's nobody who's really solving this because they're going to need warehousing, they're going to need last mile, they're going to have a lot of complexity in their operations, and these companies are all product companies, right? They're not geared up. They don't have a back end. They don't have a logistics team. They don't have a supply chain team. They will need warehousing across the country. There was nobody providing that sort of a solution. So that was the gap that I saw. And because most traditional 3PLs work in a very defined way. They will say, okay, fine, where do you need the space? I need minimum, I will not do less than 15,000 square feet. You have to pay the entire cost of the capital expenditure of racking and all of that upfront. You have to give me this much a minimum guarantee. So, banate, they will make a bill of 10 lakhs a month, which a SME cannot afford. What was needed was somebody who had a very agile network and an agile business where small businesses could experiment. They could just plug into an existing infrastructure network and start their business and operations, right? So that was kind of the sort of what we evolved to. But obviously, when I started the business, the thought was simply कि was e-commerce आ रहा है, बहुत सारे छोटे, going to be a lot of small players, a lot of medium businesses, a lot of large businesses also. All are going to need a very dynamic fulfillment solution, which the traditional 3PLs are not geared to, right? And that was sort of the vision and of forming and creating Emiza. Of course, we had problems, we faltered, but then we sort of figured it out as we went along, right? So,
Got it. Speaking of problems, I think whenever you try to solve for small and medium businesses, it has to be done in a scalable way, and that needs technology at the back end. So you need to create self-serve platforms which can be used directly by the merchants. So how did you go about building such platforms, and how did you also solve at one end you have large warehouses which is probably owned by you or other parties, but at the other end there are small businesses. So you are becoming a sort of marketplace or technology interface between these two entities. So how did you go about it?
see, tech is important, but see, we were providing more of a service, right? We are more of a service. We're a services company. So for us, I think the critical part was what we were bringing to the brand or to the SMB was infrastructure and process. So technology largely was not the main problem statement because they were already selling on marketplaces. So the marketplaces already had their own platform or seller portals on which they had to operate on. And there were already a few SaaS operators who were connecting all of these different marketplaces into a single thing. What these people really needed was geographical presence. They needed infrastructure, forward infrastructure points, and they needed reliable service providers who could execute the orders that they received on the marketplaces and fulfill them on time, right? And manage all of that complexity. So it was not so much a technology problem, it was more an infra and services problem, right? And so that is what we sort of built for them. Because let's say a small brand is sitting in Delhi, but he can manage the warehousing over there. He has his own little office and he can manage it. But if he wants to also reach customers in Bombay and Bangalore and in other and Calcutta, he can't do it sitting out of Delhi with that speed, right? So he needed forward infrastructure points. So the problem was there was nobody who was offering a plug and play infrastructure point where they could park their inventory and fulfill orders flawlessly. So that was our value proposition.
And what about the real estate cost aspect? I think building infrastructure is a costly affair. And
Yeah, it is. It is. So yeah,
how
it
do you-
is. So we raised a little bit of capital initially when we started, right? And so I think so that was so definitely here the punt was on the capital because it's always a chicken and egg, right? What comes first? So we took that punt. I mean, it was a risk. We took that punt. We took the two, three warehouses in Bombay and Delhi and Bangalore, and we took small. We didn't take very large warehouses, right? And then we tried to acquire customers in there. So that was a punt. And it took us a little while to sort of get it filled. We had to burn some money, but then once we started gaining traction, because see, we had an advantage. We were the first mover. There was nobody else in the market who had this sort of a solution at that point of time. Where we were, and we were very focused. We said we are going to focus on initially the BPC, which is the beauty and personal care segment. So we took a very structured approach. We said, boss, let's take this vertical. There are so many brands who are sort of promising brands in this space. Let's target these brands. Let's build a solution for this vertical. And then we started acquiring. And then once you acquired one, two, three, then through word of mouth, then we were able to proliferate. But that initial capital and that initial risk we had to take. And which is why when I opened the business also, we had some seed capital and then we started from there.
Understood. And that was the early days. I think now it's a different ball game altogether.
Correct. Yeah.
Every company sort of investing into warehousing, especially after the quick commerce thing.
Correct. Correct.
Companies are building dark stores and bringing in automations, robotics, and all the new technologies. What are the challenges today, and how are you solving them?
So I think so. What has happened is that we've seen channel proliferation, right? Back in those days, there was only Flipkart and Snapdeal who were fighting. Then Amazon came in, right? Now you got multiple other Myntra and all these guys who came in. Then now you've got the quick commerce piece that is coming. So what has happened is that the main thing that is increasing is speed, right? From where back in the days we were impressed when something was delivered in 4 days or 3 days, then Amazon came in and changed the paradigm to 48 hours and 24 hours, right? And Amazon thought that they were king of the hill sitting on top with a 24-hour delivery or even a same day delivery. Then the quick commerce guys came and disrupted them, right? So I think the problem of speed is being solved by the marketplaces, but now the challenge is that with that level of speed, you need to be able to fulfill to all of these multiple channels also with that equal level of speed, right? So your backend had to also gear up, accordingly. So appointment deliveries have become critical. Being able to sort of manage, inventory in multiple cities. Earlier, you could do maybe 2 cities and get away with it. Now you have to do 4, 5, 6 cities. So inventory replication is now becoming a challenge, right? So the problem is finally it's just the same problem everybody solves. I want to solve. I want to get my inventory or my product to the customer faster, right? So how does the backend gear up to that? So that is what we are solving, and now we've done it through services like appointment delivery services. We've done it through same day delivery services. We're helping brands with inventory replication in smaller quantities across more cities, right? So that's kind of how we are going around solving the problem. We have created tech solutions in terms of helping them manage and monitor their inventory more closely, replenish and reorder inventory faster, right? Because finally, end of the day, in all of this proliferation, what happens is that your inventory balloons, right? And finally, you may be doing more business, but your return on capital starts diminishing because you're not efficient. Because in a race to fill so many marketplaces and so many inventory points, you balloon, right? So that's now the new set of problems. That how do you help brands manage the scale not just by fulfilling it, but by also doing it in the most efficient way.
Got it. Uh, I was reading one report, I think last to last year, where I read almost 12% of our entire goods cost is the logistic cost incurred in transporting goods from one place to other. That includes the shipping cost, warehousing, and everything. But a lot of cost goes into the road network, the cost of transporting and so on. But one thing that shocked me was in other countries like Europe, the cost is way lesser, probably half of that or one third of that. Why would you say is India lagging behind in terms of the logistic and whole supply chain thing?
So, I will slightly like to differ on this. I don't completely agree. See, this percentage that the government came out with at 12 to 13, okay, or which they said, it was never backed with anything substantial. There's no real working as to where is this inefficiency line. So that percentage itself was fairly debatable. When that number came out within our own circles, we used to talk about it. Where is this happening, right? So typically, efficiency or inefficiency could be in two, three pockets. One is loss of product. So I think a lot of this could also be related to products which are perishable in nature, where like your apples and potatoes and stuff like that, where in India, the cold chain network is not very well developed. So there is definitely 20 to 30% product loss, especially in the perishables category. And that's a different problem altogether. But in the mainstay categories in which we are playing, which could be your consumer durables, FMCG, fashion, lifestyle, automotive, I don't believe the percentages would be anywhere near that high. And if you look at it as a country, right? I mean, today uh, our road network has significantly improved over the last 7 to 8 years. Uh, the Bombay-Delhi distances, which were earlier taking 3 days, now have come down to sub 24 hours. And I think with the Bombay-Delhi corridor coming in place, it'll be maybe 12 to 14 hours. So I think the road network is definitely improved. So therefore, efficiency is coming in over there. The rail network is still, I think, an area of where we need to catch up over there, but that is also not bad. We have a fairly well-developed air network also of air cargo, although a very small percentage moves over there. The warehousing network also is fairly well developed now. We've got good grade A warehouses, which are pretty much comparable to international at all the major cities, and also maybe tier two cities. So I think the infrastructure network has definitely caught up. With GST also coming in, the movement of goods has become faster. So I think if you ask me, whatever the percentage may be, whether it was 12 or 13, I'm not even debating that. I can definitely tell you from my own experience over the last 4 to 5 years, I've definitely seen inefficiencies go out. Everything is getting faster, the lead times are getting shorter, and consolidation is happening over there. Now, you come to the entire delivery side, right, on supply chain. Now you look at today, which country can boast of a 10-minute delivery? Other than India, I don't think there's any other country. So if you ask me, I'm quite proud of the way India has moved ahead and the way we have innovated in our delivery speed. I mean, I think we are ahead of many countries in that sense. But that being said, like I said, there are still areas of inefficiency. I would definitely think India's cold chain network is lagging behind. Our rail network is something that can definitely improve further. And I think definitely tier three and tier four distribution networks is an area of where again there can be further improvement in the road infrastructure over there. So there are pockets, but I think India as a country has moved significantly.
I was reading to your LinkedIn post, and on one post you had stated logistic is not just an expense; it's a strategic differentiator. And
Correct.
I think I also agree to that because if you take an example of an Amazon seller who is delivering in 24 hours, another seller delivering in 3 days, let's say, so uh, the 24-hour one is clear winner. Everybody is going to
Correct.
choose that vendor. So what would you say further to that? How would you, what is the meaning behind the statement? Logistic is a strategic differentiator.
See, like I said, customers today are looking for speed and convenience. So anybody who can get the products faster and into the hands of the customer is going to win, right? So simple example, if somebody is today on quick commerce and somebody is not, uh, they're people who are not on the quick commerce platform are going to lose. So here the speed enabled through logistics and distribution is the strategic differentiator, right? So brands who are able to get onto all of these channels, or able to get their inventory in multiple places, or able to respond to the need to the need for speed, right? They are the ones who are going to win. So that can only happen through logistics. So logistics, one is the speed element. The second is the cost of doing business, right? If people have designed their networks intelligently, if they're able to shave off 2-3% on their overall cost of logistics, right? Through smarter placement, maybe figuring out where they manufacture. See, it's not just about logistics is not about just the trucking and the warehousing, right? It's also about designing your manufacturing network. Where all are your manufacturing points? Where, how do you reduce lead times from there, right? How do you design your demand planning? So it's all of these pieces put together, right? It's not just the transportation and the warehousing. You have to think of every single element in your chain, from procure to pay, from order to cash, and figure out how to bring that down. If you're able to do that, that's where the difference comes in. And the difference will be seen in your top line, because you're able to sort of grow the business faster because of availability and speed. And second is in the bottom line, because you're able to sort of do it far more efficiently, right? So that's what I meant by that particular statement. And there are many brands who have executed this very, very well. So
Uh, how would you see the AI and machine learning, which are the buzzwords right now? And I think AI is coming into everyday life more and more. Uh, how do you see AI and machine learning further transforming the logistic industry? And how is Emiza particularly leveraging these technologies?
So, look, AI and ML are, the great buzzwords, and there is a lot of value in it also, but sometimes they are overused or abused even, right? So, I think, see, in our business, right, what is the main thing, right? We are finally a cost center for a business. No business comes, and every business thinks about their warehousing and supply chain as a cost center. So the very nature of that is that customers will keep coming to you to reduce cost year on year. They're going to say, look, I want cheaper warehousing, I want cheaper last mile. So in scenario, the only way for us to do it as a 3PL or as a service provider is to be efficient in our own costs and to keep making our business more efficient. If our business is more efficient, then I'm able to withstand the pressure that the customer exerts on me uh, on account of pricing. So for us, I think therefore as a service provider, I think the use of artificial intelligence, or I wouldn't say artificial intelligence, I would say automation, right? Under the broader ambit of automation, where AI is part of that, I think that is where this industry needs to move. And there are a lot of opportunities today on automation. It could be software automation, as simple as a good warehouse management system, the use of handheld devices, the use of conveyors, simple things like that could bring in efficiency. Use of data on a real-time basis to monitor your operations, to identify inefficiencies, to correct that on a real-time basis. Otherwise, typically what happens today, the state of the industry is such that most people don't leverage data, right? People don't gather real-time data on what's happening in the operation. How is the manpower being utilized? How is the space being utilized? How is the network being utilized? If you're able to do that and start, using automation and technology to start eliminating wastages over there, right? So I'll give you simple examples, right? In our business, for example, with manpower, my major cost, 50% of my cost is manpower. If I'm able to save 10% on my manpower cost, that's a massive savings to my bottom line, right? So we've built manpower modules where people are able to, where we're literally able to sort of monitor productivity at an individual level, see how much wastage is there. We're able to identify productivity metrics for the same activity at different places in the country, to benchmark them, right? Then use that information to improve processes somewhere, to improve productivity, to incentivize people. So, so you don't need to go as far as AI, right? Even if you just use data intelligently, you're able to gather data intelligently and use that data, and then use basic automation. I think that is something which is necessary and what we are doing. Other than that, I think if you have a strong data warehouse available where all the data is coming in, then AI can play a very good role there in terms of AI agents and bots and being able to address customer queries. So you have less dependence on people. You're able to provide faster responses to customers. If customer wants to know, look, why is this order not being dispatched? What is the status of this order? Why is it stuck? You can have chatbots who are able to sort of respond to that, literally on a 24/7, right? So I think these are the areas where, AI agents, workflow automation, all of these things can add tremendous value and help providers like us become more and more efficient to withstand the pressures of from our customers, and therefore give them a cost saving and make the overall network efficient.
All right. And here is my final question. Since you are so close to e-commerce and you see D2C vendors day in and day out, I'm sure you would be observing some trends, and that too from a different side, which the typical D2C players cannot see. And since many of the D2C players do watch our podcast, how would you advise them about the upcoming opportunities? What are the new big opportunities that you see in the Indian D2C sector or even logistics sector in the next 5 years?
So I think right now the biggest trend is around quick commerce. I think that is, I don't think anyone can argue on that particular one. So definitely we are seeing, across, see, different categories have reacted differently to quick commerce, right? Especially food, FMCG is something where there has been a significant amount of uptick, whereas fashion maybe not so much, right? So I think at a category level, I think each brand needs to figure out what channel works for them. But I think in terms of trend, I think quick commerce is one. Therefore, brands are also, that being said, right? What we're seeing also is brands also saying that, look, I'm seeing good traction on quick commerce, but I'm seeing that my overall dependence on marketplaces is increasing significantly, right? So therefore, my own ability to own my own customer, that we're seeing some amount of compression where brands are losing their own customers to marketplaces, which is not a, a great sign. Because finally, end of the day, a brand, if it has to stand, it has to be also have its own customer base. So brands need to monitor this particular area of their business to ensure that they, whilst they are selling on quick commerce and marketplaces, they have to have a very sound strategy to build their own book of business, either offline or through their D2C website, right? So definitely offline is another trend that we're seeing. So although quick commerce is eating offline, but D2C brands are definitely pushing hard into offline and modern trade. That's a trend that we're seeing. Other than that, I think on the technology front, definitely AI in terms of the use in areas like performance marketing, in terms of inventory analytics. In all of these areas, we are seeing a lot of brands taking this up seriously. Brands are now, there are a lot of startups who are doing data warehousing, dashboards. So I think there's a lot more focus on insight-based decision making, which may not have been the case earlier when uh, brands found for finding it easier to sell on the websites when the RoAS was higher. Now there are so many brands, the cost of marketing is going up. So brands are seeing their RoAS decline. So the only way there is you have to be more insightful in the way you spend your money, right? So data-driven analytics, data-driven insights is a very clear trend also we are seeing now.
All right. I think we have come to the closure of the session. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Ajay. It was pleasure talking to you, and kudos to the venture that you are building.
Great, great. Thanks so much, Priya. Take care. Yeah.